For a few years, I worked at the Florida Fish and Game Commission, it was then called, in Tallahassee. And the game wardens, who are now called wildlife officers, I believe, would tell me stories. And this is a poem about one of the stories. It's a rescue of a man who had gone to the swamp. And there again, another theme that shows up a lot, which is the way that wildness and nature are refuges for us, the same way that a church or a cathedral or a mosque or a synagogue is a refuge. A swamp is not a cathedral with its downed logs, sponge of floor, greens and browns dovetailing, though the sky is fairest blue through hump-drawn cypress. There are places to say what's too big to be said in smaller places, but in a swamp, you go around in circles. A swamp has only one side, the way out, the way in. A river has a mouth. What drove the man here, tearing open fog with his outboard? What had gone so wrong? If he had done this on the street, suddenly yelling at sky above buildings, going down on his knees at the curb, he would be in a madhouse. The officers said when they found him, he was hollering loudly, as I too have stood, arms upstretched, close to death, as only in dying are we truly of God. Every ounce of flesh desperate, the breath coming in chunks, only God can gather in his big invisible hands and recreate. Make me worthy of my life, O God, and my life worthy of me. In a swamp, I am certain without a doubt, God has been there, is there. The man was certain, I'm sure he was, that God listened from the spaces between molecules, the staining amid green ceremonies of tree leaves, along rivulets of dark gullies of bark, in the seeping water itself that turns the blue reflection of God. God heard what the man had to say. What I wonder is, did God answer? Did he move toward the man through the trees? And if the man loved this life, he will be glad the officers came. For if God had reached him first, waiting high ground from the great beyond, robe gathered just out of water's reach, the man would never have been found. We're going to do two more for you, and this one is called 11th. I know where the ribbon snake lives, under the maple by the barn. One day when I was there, a dead leaf crackled like fire, and I saw her, a slip of green I followed around the waist of the tree through already dying grass. When she turned to face me, eyes burning, she studied me. I, wanting to feel her softness, her certainty, the stove of her tiny heart, I touched one finger, only one, upon her perfect tail. At that moment, the tree opened, and she wound inside, her passageway dark and narrow. Long before I turned away, no doubt she lay on her mat of earth at the bottom of the maple, among the roots, a strip of brilliant kindling. The 11th commandment is love the earth, love the tree, love the snake. Thank you so much again for coming this morning. A genius producing amazing, astounding organ music. I'm very grateful, just grateful for my life. Grateful for you, grateful you're here today. Grateful again for Sean and Sharon and for the entire church. We're faced with a lot of bad news, especially if you're paying attention. You know, we're deep into the climate crisis. We're watching war and watching people of color, you know, be harassed and oppressed and killed. There's a lot of bad news. I think sometimes we get petrified and paralyzed because we feel there's very little we can do about it. Sometimes the only weapon we have is awareness, that we listen to the news, that we read the news, that we listen to a lot of different viewpoints. I also think that sometimes our greatest sword is love. I preach this all the time, if you call this preaching, just how powerful a thing love is, how powerful bonding and attachment are to a child, to Mother Nature. And sometimes that's all we have, to get up every morning and try to make of yourself a vessel of love. Love for the ruby-throated hummingbird, love for your neighbor, love for the Russians, love for the Ukrainians. Whatever it takes for you to deepen and extend your love, I think is the best use of your time, your service here to the human community, to the wild community. This last poem is the last one in this book. It's called Courage, and you'll see where it goes, but just keep that in mind that I'm talking about courage. I have been an activist in my life. I'm still an activist, and this is just about that, where awareness and love can lead you. Intrepid by instinct, a loon floats in the torn silk of summer morning, placid through mist rising like white fire, a burning water that holds the new green of hemlock in its light. Everywhere the blue of lupin rages. All afternoon into the long spill of twilight, until there's hardly a seam to the day, a single loon serenely dives again and again into shivering water, plying a clouded bottom. Sometimes all day, for days, rain falls, night comes. Once I came upon a soft-shell turtle, newly killed. All night it sat in my refrigerator. The next morning, dressing it, I found the heart still pumping, robust, though every other part lay stiff. Eerily, the heart throbbed, majestic and crazed in my hand. The turtle did not die of failure of the heart, mad desire of one radiant ember within us all. Hours afterwards, in a bowl of water, that heart beat. Hours afterward, it pounded. Let it not be said that in passing through this world, you turned your face and left its wounds unattended. Instead, let it be said that when your friends cut open your chest to partake of its courage, a loon was calling.
Wow. What an amazing program. I'm there. We have Rick Campbell coming next week. We had Rick here last year. We just didn't get enough of him. And I said, you got to come back and we'll get more. So I hope you'll come and help us get more. It's such a delight to have you here. Thank you very much. We'll see you in a week. We do have